All right. Well, welcome back to SoulBack. This is the R&B podcast. This week we're talking about 2003. And guys, as I was reviewing my notes, a lot of interesting things that happened this week. But Tom, can we start off first with your story? You went to the doctors and you were listening to current
boy.
R&B. This is probably the last time we'll ever talk about current R&B because there's a lot of good stuff in 2003. But please, what happened?
Real quick before we get started, for anyone who's listening to the audio of this and not listening live on any of the various streaming platforms, make sure you check us out live if you're able to on Instagram or on YouTube and Facebook Live now. So that's why you might hear us, going back and forth with some of our listeners who are tuning in live. So make sure you join in on the conversation. It's usually every Saturday night, so we'll look out for the flyer. But yeah, guys, I was in the doctor's office. My son, thankfully, he's okay, but it was a little bit of a scare. And they had on some current vibey R&B music, and I'm not really into that style of music. And let me just say, it worked perfectly for a doctor's office waiting room, guys. It just set the mood, it kind of calmed you down. Any other place to hear that type of music? Nah, I can't do it.
I told y'all before, there are a lot of albums that out here that y'all are calling album of the year that is straight up elevator music. I will let you fill in the blanks there.
Well, we're not here to talk about current music. I mean, we could if you wanted to talk about Trey's album for the next hour, but we're not doing that. We're here to talk about 2003. Mm-hmm. And before we even get started, guys, can I make a statement here?
You can.
I guess.
Well, if you guys have been catching up with the news recently, my favorite group, Pretty Ricky, they're kind of in trouble right now, or at least one of the members is.
So, yes, they are.
So it's kind of hard for me to represent them right now. So I'd like to change my favorite group to a group that came out in 2003 that's also from Florida.
Hold on, thinking.
Who would that be?
Smiles and Self-Star.
Oh, my God.
We're going to go with that, guys.
Tom, get him out of here. It's too early. Get him out.
On a more serious note, where was everyone at in 2003, guys? Let us know in the comments, and you guys here on the podcast. Where were you guys at?
Well, first of all, I wasn't listening to Smiles. And actually, I was probably listening to Smiles and Self-Star because it was funny. But my God, Kyle, calm down. Right. Anyway, 2003, I mentioned before, I moved to Louisville in 2001, so I had only been there a couple years. 2003, I was still kind of getting used to being out on my own, new city, all that type of stuff. And actually, this was the year where my soon-to-be wife, future wife, Wendy soon-to-be, this is when we became an official couple. So a lot of the songs we'll be discussing today are songs that remind me of summer 2003. It was a summer of love, player. And that's when it became official.
Nice.
Amazing. In 2003, I was 13 at the time. And for me, this was a significant year because I think this was the first year that BET was broadcast in Canada. Someone might want to do their Wikipedia research on this, but I remember because when BET came on that year, I watched it. I watched everything. What was it BET Uncut? Is that the one where Nelly had Tip Drill on?
No, it was Uncut. Why were you watching Uncut? You were too young for Uncut.
I was channel surfing. It just showed up. I was watching.
Oh, really? Channel surfing at 3 a.m.
106 in Park. I was watching that. AJ and Free. That was them at their peak. Enjoyed that. So 2003, man, I was just enamored by all that was going on BET.
Guys, I was actually still listening to hip-hop, believe it or not. In 2003, I was still in college. 2003, we had Fabulous with an album. We had Jay-Z, DMX. We had Dipset. I mean, New York was on fire in hip-hop this year. The South eventually stole it from us, took over hip-hop in the years to come, Ed. I blame you guys for that, but this was a great year.
I blame y'all for a lot. But I do remember the reign of Dipset, my biggest guilty pleasure. Everybody walking around wearing pink. What can I say?
I never claimed G-Unit, though, just to set the record straight. I mean, I hated G-Unit, but that's a whole nother story. We're talking R&B here.
We'll get on that another time. G-Unit had its ups and downs. I hated that Massacre album, and y'all still mad at my 50 Cent rankings, but we'll get to that later. Go to soulandstereo.com and yell at me in the comments like everybody else.
All right, well, let me ask you guys this when we're talking about hip-hop in 2003. Were either of you shaking your tail feather?
Absolutely not.
Oh,
I'm a grown man. I'm not
I'm
some kind of bird person.
I'm ashamed to say I thought that song was fire back then
Oh,
until I was able to refine my ear
Mm.
and learn what is good and bad. But hey, this was a young Tom. I wasn't a music journalist or any type of expert on music yet. I was still learning my way, guys. I was what, 20,
Mm.
19?
Yep.
we need to do better. The second that beat dropped, I was out of there. Could not stand that beat. And Murphy Lee,
Come
we talked
on.
too much Nelly today.
We love the Saint Lunatics. Okay, let's talk about 2003 R&B now. Guys, as I was looking back at this year, I didn't want to mention him, but it's kind of hard to talk about 2003 without mentioning the man that we're not allowed to talk about, not only from the album itself, The Chocolate Factory, to all those features that he had for Marcus Houston, who we'll talk about later, the Isley Brothers. Ed, I know you love that Busted song, to JS with the Ice Cream song. I think Ignition was on this album as well, the remix at least. Ed, can we talk about this guy?
Let me lay the groundwork because I know it's a touchy subject. So here are my thoughts on the Voldemort of R&B. This podcast for 2003, we're looking at it in a historic spectrum. We're not talking about allegations, whether somebody's guilty, whether somebody's innocent, although that person even had a song about that. So, but the point is, we're looking at this from a historical perspective, and you can't really look at this objectively and leave that out. Whether you want to mute or cancel or do whatever, that's your choice. But for me, I feel like it has to be mentioned. And that does not mean that we are condoning anything. Excuse me, y'all. So we talking. At least I am.
I'm still trying to figure out 17 years later why he was wearing a mask.
Well, Tom, before you even get to that, see what happens when we talk about him? Ed just starts coughing.
Ed just starts vomiting almost over there. I mean, it's just, yeah.
Yeah. But yes, the mask, the Pied Piper mask. Can we talk about the Pied? That was epic.
I mean, I never thought it was epic. I just had no idea what was going on at the time. So
and then Tom, the Marcus Houston song "Clubbin'," where he's like yelling, that weird sound that he does.
Well, that weird sound. I mean, it didn't really add anything to the song if you think about it. And like, what did the Pied Piper? Let us know in the comments. Like, what did the whole Pied Piper thing even mean? Lawrence, let us know. I see your comment. I didn't get it. Was it an act? Was it a gimmick? I haven't thought about that in probably 15 years, but you brought it up, so let's just move on.
I remember right.
Yeah.
Ed is still dying.
I think Jesus does not want me to talk about this. So anyway, if I remember right, this was his persona because he was leading so many people into R&B.
What?
You know the Pied Piper led kids around, right?
Oh, the beginning of the end.
Oh, gee.
That's all I'm saying. Y'all do it with you will.
Move on.
Well, let's just move on. Ed, do you think the Chocolate Factory is a good album? True or false?
To me, I think it's his best album.
Okay.
People will debate that. They'll say TP2, they'll say 12 Play. I think it's his best.
Fair. All right.
His most complete by far.
So we'll talk about something a little less controversial. Alicia Keys' second album. I know you guys go back and forth on this one, on it being Alicia Keys' best album. Some might argue it's her second. Tom, what's your stance on this one? Or even before we get to that, talk about the hype going into this album for you, because I know you love the debut.
Shout out to Donnell Jones in the house who just checked in real quick. Legend right there. Someone we support heavily. As far as Alicia Keys, I was hyped on this album because I loved her debut. And then I'm not going to say I was disappointed by the Diary of Alicia Keys. I mean, she had some huge singles. You Don't Know My Name. I love Diary. And there were some great songs, even album cuts on here.
Yep.
I don't think it's her second best album. Ed would disagree. I don't think it's a classic. I think it's a very strong album. It really helped further solidify her legacy because she has some really standout songs. no doubt it was one of the best albums of the year. But but I know me and Ed go back and forth on.
My voice holds up. I don't know what's going down. You mentioned R. Kelly and like your tonsils get ripped out. Anyway, I have talked about this before. Shaquille Perry gets mad when I mention it, but it's real. I feel like this is Alicia's best album. I feel like it's the best album of the year, although it came out close to the end of the year, so it feels more like 2004 to me in a lot of places. Not only that, I also think it is the best album of the decade. When I ranked the albums of the decade, that was my number one. It's a 5-star album to me. Her best work by far. So yes, I have a lot of love and a lot to say about this album. I know you two get kind of iffy about it, but when you like add in the album cuts, which Tom mentioned are very strong, the singles, many of which are actual classics. I will use the C word for some of those singles. As a body of work, you can't beat it.
I would say this, and this might be controversial, I don't know, but I would say Diary by Alicia Keys is her best song to date.
I love that song.
Me too. I would say that too.
Shout out to Tony.
Yeah.
Without Raphael Sadiq. No Raphael Sadiq though.
If I Ain't Got You, obviously a huge song. You Don't Know My Name, the Kanye produced one, huge record as well. And Karma, I know a lot of people look back at that song as a standout. I've actually seen her perform that live, and she had like the strings in the back. It's actually really cool to see.
If I Ain't Got You and the Kanye joint, I will call both of those classic songs. For that era.
Let me throw out there the album cuts. I really like Slow Down. Ed, do you remember that one off the top of your head?
Love it.
The last song, I think it's called Nobody Not Really. Really like that song. And then there was this unreleased joint called Streets of New York with Nas and Rakim that came out. I believe it was around this album, which I actually really liked.
I totally forgot about that song. I remember that track.
Yep.
Tom is on it with the hip hop references today. I totally forgot about that track.
I told you it was in the New York hip hop. That was an anthem. Yeah. She sampled, hip hop on that one, and that was a great song.
It was. I got to go back and dig that up.
The only thing I'll say,
best album to me of the decade.
Wow. The only thing I'll say about that album is that Heartburn. I got to go back to the credits because that did not sound like a Timbaland beat.
No, it didn't.
I know she yells Timbo in the song, but we gotta figure out what was going on there. That was not Timbaland.
Look, you know why me and Kyle hold something against this album?
What's
because
that?
You don't know my name. That beat was originally for Playa.
Yes,
it was for Playa. So we gotta hold it against it.
It was, but I can't hold that against her. The track is incredible. And the album is incredible.
I like the concept of that song too. I mean, that was cool. I thought it was, with the video, whole thing.
We might need to get you guys to reenact the phone call.
No. But I mean, it's storytelling. How much do I often come up here and talk about making sure that your album tells stories and that your songs tell stories. And I'm a writer, so that appeals to me. But I love a song that has a story, that has a theme, you can feel what she's saying because you can actually envision this storyline that's going on. That is what heartfelt R&B is all about. I'm missing that in today's music. You putting out this music that's putting Tom asleep in the freaking doctor's office. Give me some structure here.
Hold on real quick. Couple of shout outs. Shout out to Nicolette Carney in the house, Philip Winslow, of course, our boy Shaquille Perry. I see our guy Theo Sullivan Brandon in the house. Yes, sampled New York State of Mind. Shout out to our girl JoJo 2008. We will be discussing Joe at some point in this podcast, so stay tuned. I appreciate everyone who's tuned in right now.
Yep. Now, let's talk about some of the males that came out this year. I've got the list here. Some very solid releases here. I definitely want to get into Anthony Hamilton because that was an amazing album.
Yes,
Musiq
please.
Soulchild came out. Ginuwine, Brian McKnight, Avant, Joe, Gerald Levert. I mean, just so many great names. Let's talk about Anthony Hamilton first because a lot of people don't know he actually dropped his debut album in the 90s, but this is the one that really, really turned him into a huge, not only a star, but I would say like people went to Anthony Hamilton for a certain type of music. It was therapeutic. It was soulful. Like, just talk about Anthony Hamilton in 2003, guys.
Player, what did I just say a second ago about songs that tell stories and music that fuels emotion? You go listen to that album. that my man Anthony put out from the beginning. Like the first track, he's talking about like his upbringing, and you can just envision, you can smell the cornbread and collard greens that he's talking about. Then he's got the song Lord Charlene. I don't know who Charlene is, but I want them to get back together because he is so sad. And then he got the song I'm a Mess, where he sounds like he's just having a come apart on track. Like that emotion, you do not hear that emotion today, and it drives me nuts. There is so much passion, every note that he just shared. He just bared his soul with his album. I absolutely love it. And today, I still think it stands as one of the most underrated releases in the past 20 years. It is incredible.
Shout out to Tar Heels fan. I'll tell you what I remember about this album. I could only listen to this album when I was in a place where I was just kind of down and low. Because if I was happy and feeling good, this project would take me down there, unfortunately.
Yep. Wow.
It was kind of oof. And that's how I felt about Anthony Hamilton on his first couple albums. I love Anthony Hamilton. You know, someone I consider a legend, has made some great albums, but man, you got to be in a certain mood to listen to this album, guys. Charlene you'll feel that pain, guys.
Another album that came out, Musiq Soulchild's Soul Star album. Tom, I see online, some people love this album, but there's a lot of people that just didn't get this album because of the production.
Damn, who are those people? I want to address them immediately. Where are they?
Calm down.
It was different though, right?
This is my second favorite Musiq Soulchild album. I think it's his second best because once again, like I said, he took it to another level. You know, Love and Music, he took it more of a traditional R&B sound, but this one I felt like he took it to a sound that was just unique. I mean, Womanopoly, you've never heard a song like that. You know, the intro, Soul Star. I mean, Who Knows was a big hit. Great song. And there's like, Ed, I don't know where you rank this one, if you've ranked Musiq's discography, but I really felt like I was anticipating this one and it kind of, you know, outpaced the second one for me.
I've ranked them and I can't remember exactly where it was placed, but I get why people are kind of torn on it because it doesn't sound like, especially his previous album. So I get why people are kind of like, where are you going with this one?
Yeah.
I enjoy it though. I mean, well, the thing is there's no bad Musiq album. So I can't say, oh, it's trash. That doesn't exist. However, I get why people are a little iffy about it. I think it's fun. I love Womanopoly. It's one of his best songs. I cannot believe to this day we didn't get a video for that. But it was a shift in direction, but it wasn't one. Sometimes I want artists to take risks, and this was a risk that I felt like paid off. So I liked it. I appreciate the album.
Yeah. Brian McKnight, Avant, and Joe, they all dropped solid albums that year. And Ginuwine, I want to bring this album up because this is another one I've seen online where a lot of people love this album, but then there's a lot of people that don't like this album. And like for me, I remember listening to it when it came out, and it almost seemed too gimmicky at the time. You had songs like Hell Yeah, In Those Jeans, and then the Sex record. And I know you remember that one. But when I look back at it now, and shout outs to Derek Dunn if you listen to this, because he's really been pushing me to go back and listen. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this one and see if I love it more than I did before. Because like I love Stingy. That's like one of the best soundtrack records of all time. And that was on this album. But man, I got to go back. What did you guys think of that album?
It was okay. I was not a fan of the singles. I didn't really like them that much. I guess, I don't know if Stingy counted as a single. That never got a video, but it did get radio play, at least in Louisville it did. But not the biggest fan of this one, player. It's not his worst album. It's probably, I think I ranked it kind of in the middle when I ranked his discography, but it doesn't do much for me. And it was the first project that came out where I was not really excited about anything that we heard until I dug into the project and listened to the album cuts. Usually Ginuwine is good for at least one great single. I don't remember us getting one off of this one.
Listen, I can never fault this album because I had In Those Jeans, Stingy, and Love You More back to back, which I thought were great songs. But overall, Ed, I disagree. I think this is his worst album. And this is coming from a place of I love Ginuwine. I'm a big fan. You got to have one album that's your worst. I think this is his worst. Songs like Lockdown, the movie, which was like some type of weird skit. You had Mike Tyson giving an intro, which I never really understood. A song called Cheddar Brings. I mean, it was just kind of all over the place, and I never
It
really thought it
was.
was that great. Hell Yeah was a huge song, especially the remix. I remember here in New York.
With the clips, yep.
Yeah, but the R. Kelly version too, yeah.
Yeah.
But I thought that overshadowed kind of the rest of the album because like Stingy and Love You More is like two
Yep.
5-star songs on a scale of 1 to 5. So,
yep.
But yeah, just
Hey,
not.
you can't win them all. You can't win them all.
You can't. I mean, yeah.
You can't.
No, you can't.
Kyle, can I talk about the Avant album though?
Yes, you can.
Now the Avant album, Private Room. I feel like that pushes his debut as far as maybe his best album. I would go
Really?
either one of those. I love this album, man.
I remember copping the album, but it was all right. That's a discography I need to rank, so I can't really say for sure. Certainly not bad though.
I didn't love his second album. I loved his debut. I didn't love his second album, Ecstasy. And then when this came out, I was like all in again on being an Avant fan. And
Was this young.
Hmm?
Was this the one with "Don't Take Your Love Away"?
Yeah, this was.
Okay,
but the intro, the song AV, which was not even a single, Read Your Mind, Heaven, which was not a single, Don't Take Your Love Away. There was a duet with Olivia called Seems to Be, which I really liked.
Yep, I remember.
There was a song called Everything About You, which wasn't even a single, and I really liked.
That's a good one.
So there's some good stuff on here.
Yep, it's back there somewhere, and I wore that out in 2003. But I don't remember loving it. I think that's one that I think I need to go back and redo real soon. So look for that Avant album ranking soon.
Hold on, we got a comment in our Instagram. I never heard an Avant album. You need to do.
Today is your lucky day.
Yeah, you need to do some homework. Take a listen. Come back next week. Let us know what you figured out.
Yep. The females. I'm gonna name a couple of females that dropped some albums this year: Erykah Badu, Monica, Maya, Little Mo. Man, that Little Mo album was so good. Kelly Price.
Oh.
Elise, Mary J. Blige, Mariah Carey, and Ashanti.
Where do we start?
One of those is not like the others.
No,
but
let me start, guys. I love the Ashanti album. Let me say this. Let me give some backstory. When Ashanti's debut came out, was it 2002? I really liked it. And I was hyped for Chapter 2, and it did not disappoint me one bit, guys.
Wow.
Ed, you're just some hater, man.
Look here, player.
Let me tell you, Rain on Me, Rock With You. Where are you coming from?
You just named the only songs that are listenable. You just missed the other 15 that are in the trash.
Man.
Let me tell you my Chapter 2 story. So I give Kyle a hard time about Ashanti, but I was an Ashanti fan, especially in 2002. And remember, I just said in 2003, this was the year that my wife and I started like officially dating. So she did not like Ashanti because she's like, this woman sounds terrible. But I remember on release day going to Target, because this is what you used to do, kids. You didn't stay up till 12:01 and listen to it on streaming. You hit up Target to get that $9.99 sale on release day. I remember driving to Target because we were out somewhere. This wasn't even our usual Target. And she was with me. I copped the album. I threw it in. Well, the first couple of tracks I think were okay. But by like track 4 or 5, I'm kind of like, and she's just sitting over in the corner like, what did you expect? What did you expect? Wow. And to this day, I have recently named on the Cypher my most disappointing purchases. Not one of those albums you got from BMG for 99 cents. Not those joints from the club.
God. Wow.
The ones you actually spent money on. That 50 Cent album, and Kanye's 808s are my 3 most disappointing purchases that I have made with my cash money. I was so bored with this album. It is not good.
Sounds like some bias. His soon-to-be wife didn't like it, so he didn't even give it a chance, Kyle.
Oh,
hey, Matt, the wife is always right. Even if she's wrong, the wife is always right. That's life lessons.
Kyle, why do you love this album?
Tom, Ed, we're unbiased, I guess, journalists, right? Is that what we call ourselves?
Yes,
I do. I don't know what you call yourself, Kyle. I'm just a stand.
I'm claiming that I'm a unbiased journalist, and this might be shocking to a lot of people, but I actually don't like this Ashanti album.
What?
This is my least favorite Ashanti album.
You know the
finally
song,
some truth.
Do you know the song "Feel So Good"? Do you know the song "Sweet Baby"? Do you know the song "Ooh Ah"?
But
I mean, are you listening to the same thing?
oh,
Did
but
you,
but
are you
but
what
to
you're
be
saying? The song "Ooh Ah."
to be fair, guys, just because I don't like this album doesn't mean it was a bad album. I think I didn't like it because how were you supposed to follow up with the 5-star debut? You can't.
Oh, here we go.
So there are some good songs on here, but I just gotta say it's not my favorite Ashanti album. Now the Rock With You video, that is the greatest music video of all
Oh
time.
Oh my God.
That elephant, I wish I was an elephant today. But
Can,
we're gonna move on.
Please, let's move
can
on.
I just comment on the Maya album real quick, Mood Ring?
Yes.
Because I saw some
Mood Ring,
comments
yep.
about it in our Instagram. I actually was mixed on this album. I was really looking forward to it. You know, obviously, My Love Is Like Whoa was a huge single.
Mm-hmm.
Fallen.
Yep, Fallen.
I love that song. The sample they used was, you know, perfectly flipped. But I didn't love this album. Ed, how did you feel about it?
Yeah, I didn't love this album, and you know I'm a big Missy fan, but I did not like My Love Is Like Whoa that much. Fallen was my joint, and there were a few cuts up there that I appreciated, but overall it was just okay to me. It wasn't bad, but it really didn't hit me like Fear of Flying, which I wore out back in 2000. It was nowhere near that level to me.
Speaking of flying, Monica's After the Storm album. I know a lot of people love this album, but can we talk about the album cover? For all these years, I thought Monica was walking on water or she was standing on water, but apparently the background is like a plane. Did you guys know this?
A plane? I thought she's
yes,
on the
it's
beach.
like
that's what I thought too.
If you look, it's supposed to be like a plane's wing on a runway.
Wait,
if you go
what?
back and look,
Yeah, Tom, go look at
Is
this.
this a riddle we didn't know about until now?
A riddle? No, it's just look at it. I would pull it down, but I don't feel
What
like it.
plane? That's a cloud and some water. I'm looking at it right now.
No.
Why is there a wing behind her? Now that I'm looking.
Well, that's the airplane. What do you think it was?
Who just poses in front of an airplane with some at sunset? I don't know what's going on in this
It's
cover.
Monica. She just got off the plane.
Hey,
It's after the storm.
but the album is good. I really love this album.
No, this is a great album.
You've got So Gone. You Should Have Known Better. Knock Knock, underrated. And then some of those So Shocking Carlin album cuts. Can we talk about the song Hurts the Most? That is an amazing song.
Can.
That's
I
a
love
5-star
that
song.
Great song.
Yep, one of my favorite Monica releases. I might put her debut as number one, but this one very, very close behind.
Now, Ed, if on the spot you can do the rap for So Gone, this is the So Gone challenge, I will buy your next meal for you.
I can, but I won't because first of all, I don't trust you to buy my next meal. You're like, because I know you too well. But yes, I do know that rap. That's why when it was ridiculous the other day when she was like, "Why do people call me Gunica? I'm a nice lady." I'm like, "Did you listen to your rap for So Gone? You threatened a man on wax."
Yep.
I even love the song "Get It Up" with Ed's boy Dirtbag. That song is
My
good,
boy Dirtbag. Boy Dirtbag had 2 features and then disappeared.
And we've got the DMX record too. That was a good one.
That was
I'm going to
good.
quickly go through a couple of other ones here. Erykah Badu. I mean, we got to talk about this album. Everyone loves this album.
You know, now I will say, because you were like, "Oh, you're just convinced your wife just like brainwashed you." My wife loved this album.
Oh boy.
This one was just okay to me. Like I love Badu, but of all her albums, this might be my least favorite. I don't hate it, but it is just to me. It's a good track for it.
Let me ask you guys a question. As a young fan listening to music, like I said, I was like 19 around the time this came out. All I knew from Erykah Badu from the mainstream was Tyrone. Literally, that's all I had known about her.
Mm-hmm.
Why is
Really?
that?
I mean, I guess that was
from
her
a mainstream from a mainstream perspective, like listening to radio. That's all I would hear ever about Erykah Badu.
They didn't play in NY. They didn't play like On and all her early hits because they wore that out in Virginia.
No, absolutely not. I found that's now looking back, I find it strange.
Yeah.
No, it got plenty of play where I was.
Well, yeah, some artists or some hits are just like regional hits, but who knows? Maybe just New York was too busy playing G-Unit at the time.
They were actually, and it was a sad time.
It happens. I'm going to name a couple more albums here. Little Mo, Kelly Price, and Khalees. Ed, I know they'll probably end up on your list at some point, but this Khalees album, I want to get into this one. Milkshake's on this album. Did you guys like Milkshake?
Oh, see, Milkshake kind of overshadowed this whole project. This album was actually
Yep.
pretty good, but it was hard to take it seriously if you only heard that one song. The rest of the album doesn't really sound anything like it, right, Ed?
Not at all. And I like Milkshake, but boy, I got sick of Milkshake. I was like,
Yes.
please shake your milk elsewhere, lady. I heard it enough. And then it became, I mean, it really became part of pop culture because then you got like people using it as an adjective. And I mean, good for her because it really took off. But as a fan, I'm like, oh, I'm sick of it. But the album is pretty solid.
Yep. Let's get into some groups that came out. Or actually, before we even get into the groups, Mariah Carey and Mary J. Blige, these were the albums that they put out before they made their massive comebacks, Charm Bracelet and Love and Life. And I know the Mary album especially doesn't get a lot of love. The Mariah one, people have been calling for justice on this album. Does it deserve justice, Ed?
Little player. And this is the part where you send your hate tweets to E.T. Bowser or your hate DMs to Edward Bowser here on IG. I did not realize that that album. First of all, Mariah fans, look, y'all want justice for everything. You want justice for Glitter, Charm Bracelet, whatever. And, well, you just want to throw it down forever. Charm Bracelet's okay. Like, I don't think it was. I love Mariah, but she ain't bulletproof, y'all. I'm sorry. And Charm Bracelet had its ups and downs. I appreciated a few tracks. Some stuff doesn't do it for me. And Mary, I didn't know that anybody liked the Mary album until recently on the Soul and Stereo Cypher on Facebook. You can go join us there and talk about this that we do right now. And there were a lot of people defending that album. And I'm like, really? That is by far my least favorite Mary album. So these are two legends that put out projects that hardcore fans love, but kind of lukewarm reception by everybody else.
Shout out to Montrez Jones. He corrected us that this actually came out in 2002.
December 2002. Yep.
That kind of counts, but I'll comment on the Mary J album. I didn't love it either. I felt like it was kind of a bit all over the place. The song with 50 Cent I kind of liked, and the song with Method Man I kind of liked. And there were some others like, the song where she sampled, Ed, what group did that sample? Intro.
Yes, Intro.
Yeah, which I thought was a good flip. The first song, or one of the first songs, Don't Go, I liked. But overall, I thought it was kind of hit or miss. And the Mariah, you touched on it pretty much, so I won't go into that one.
And plus, that came out in 2002, so we'll talk about it again next week.
Yeah.
Some groups came out with albums this year as well. In 2003, Jagged Edge, the Hard album. 702, Star. 112's Hot and Wet. I'm surprised we're not dressed like 112 Hot and Wet today.
Oh.
And B2K,
there's a reason why.
Pandemonium, their final album here. Which album stands out to you guys?
Let me make a confession right here. The most disappointed I've ever been in my life was when that 112 album came out, because I was a 112 stan. As I've mentioned before, my screen name on AOL was Room 112, something like that. When this album came out, and I feel comfortable saying this because we've talked to Mike, that's our guy. He admits they kind of lost their way on this one when they signed with Def Jam.
Yep.
He understands that it wasn't their best work. But man, I just really wanted to like it because I was a huge 112 fan. I just couldn't like it at the time. So I was just so disappointed, guys.
Remember when I talked earlier about those CDs that you get from BMG for 99 cents?
Uh-oh.
That's when 112 is sitting over there for a penny. And that I'm a huge 112 fan. As y'all know, I love the first 3 albums. I love the new EP. Go check out the new EP if you haven't. That's one of my favorites this year. But this Wet T-shirt contest album, player, no. Now, it's got some good songs on it. I like Right Here With You, I think it's called. There are a couple joints on it. But when I heard the singles, and I was like, I don't like this Na 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 song. And then there was something else. I'm like, I don't like this joint. So by far, it was a misstep for my boys. But of the albums that you mentioned, Kyle, my favorite by far is Jagged Edge.
Yes.
Hard.
Yes.
I love Hard. I think it is a very underrated release.
Agreed. I love that album too. I was excited for that one, and I was not disappointed at all.
Not at all.
Just like a child that was lost at 7. That was a great lyric. I've gotten a correction here. B2K actually came out in 2002. I believe the deluxe version of that came out in 2003. Someone might want to check with me on that one, but that was actually B2K's final album. Haven't seen them since, but Bump 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 was a huge song. Girlfriend, all these R. Kelly records, I'm telling you, he was dominating this year.
I'll go check, but I could have sworn that was 03. I know that because of 106 in part, we tend to like think that B2K had this gigantic 10-year career. They were around for literally like a year and a half before they went on and did other things. And so it may have been late 02. And like you said, the other one went into 03 to kind of like the bonus edition, but they weren't around long. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. I saw a comment here from Immortal Reven. Smoking Black Dragon. I don't know where that fits into this podcast, but I would love to talk about that right now, but we're not going to go there.
Next week.
Next week.
702, their third album. I know I've made a couple of errors with my dates on this live, maybe or maybe not, but someone actually tried to correct me on this one and say that it was released in 2002. I went on Wikipedia, I went on Amazon, I went on Discog, it all said 2003, so
it's 2003.
I'm taking that one to the grave with me, but this album, I know a lot of people on social media, this is actually a Twitter thriller, but a lot of people on social media love this album and they really big up it. But to me, I mean, it doesn't come close to the debut. I think their second album is very solid as well. This one actually, although I don't love it as much as the other two, we got to talk about that Neptune's record, I Still Love You.
Hold on. We're not disrespecting Smoking Black Dragon, guys. We understand they have a new record coming out and we're going to support it on the site. But this isn't the proper format to discuss that. So
we're talking 2003 R&B.
Immortal Reven, this is 2003 R&B. Just if you got something to add about that, chime in, all right?
Yeah. But that 702 Neptune's record, I Still Love You. Guys, can we talk about that?
I remember I read an article years ago. I'm sure this may have changed now, but it was an interview. This is when I was working at the newspaper. So it may have been around 03, maybe 05, a little later. But there was an interview with the Associated Press with Pharrell, and they asked him what was his favorite beat that he ever created, and he named that beat because it is that great. Like, he didn't say grinding, he didn't say anything else. He said that was his favorite. I'm sure that may have changed by now, but I love that song. I agree with you, Kyle. The album's okay. It might be my least favorite of their albums, but it was definitely 2003, and it was one of those ones that kind of came and went. We know that there were issues going on there. Yeah. It didn't get the push it deserved. And I don't know why we didn't get that push. The Star single, I thought was just kind of
Yeah.
No, I liked it. It was fun.
Better than I Still Love You?
It was nowhere near I Still Love You.
Yeah.
No.
Good song, though.
But I love 702. Album was okay.
Yep.
Shout out to our girl, Mila.
A couple more albums that came out. We're almost running out of time, so I'm going to blaze through these ones here. Blackstreet, Calvin Richardson, Gerald Levert, the Isley Brothers, Macy Gray, Ed's Girl, Blue Cantrell, Shantae Moore, and Aretha Franklin. But I think it's time we talk about some of these rookies, guys. These debut albums that came out in 2003. I'm going to name them. You guys just tell me what stands out. What's the first thing that comes to mind for these guys right here? We've got Kem.
Rapid fire.
We've got Beyonce. We've got Solange, Marcus Houston, Latif, Ruben Studdard, JS, Javier, Frankie J, Lumidi, and Amanda Perez. Ed, do you want to talk about Kem?
Okay, I guess I'll be the only one qualified to talk about Kim. Listen,
come on.
I know Kim is an acquired taste. I like Kim. I still haven't listened to his new album. I need to listen to his new album. But Kim is great to me because he has cultivated a fan base that he will stick with him no matter what. I don't care what he puts out. He didn't even have to promote it. Like, it just appears and his people rush to it. So good for him for touring, for cultivating that fan base. And it started right here. When you think of Kim, you think of Love Calls. So you think of this era of Kim.
And let me just say about Kim, I mean, check out our last interview we did with him because this album was his debut, but he was selling this thing out of his car in Detroit. And then he got signed to release it, on the mainstream level. But man, he put in work. I mean, Kim, and now look where he's at now. One of the premier adult R&B artists. I got to give this guy props always.
Yeah. His albums always do well. He knows how to connect to his fans, gets them to buy his product. So you gotta love Chem for that. Tom, you probably weren't listening to Beyonce in 2003 because you always like to go against the grain. But were you listening to Solange?
I listened to the album, yes, because
Crush was on there.
Because Crush was. I was a Neptune stan. For those that don't know me, it made me listen to the album. I wasn't loving the whole album. There was a few songs that stood out to me. Static wrote a song in here, right, Kyle?
Yeah, called Get Together.
Get Together. That was a good song, but it was not a bad album. Just wasn't really for me.
But Marcus Houston's debut.
Wow, man, I was excited for this one. Now I heard Clubbin', and that was another Pied Piper special, right?
Oh boy, was it?
But I just really felt like Marcus Houston with this one stepped out from IMX. We had been waiting for this moment because he had so much success with the group. He was a lead, and then didn't disappoint. I mean, I liked Clubbin' a lot, and then there were some other songs that weren't even singles that I liked a lot. Can I Call You was one. Cancel was one. There's a few on here, but I've been a Marcus Houston fan since I heard this one.
Mm-hmm. I'll get into one here, and then Ed, I'll throw it back to you for a couple of other ones. But Latif and Javier, those two debut albums, they're super slept on. I don't know if anyone, aside from us three, have heard those projects, but I would recommend, honestly, that everyone go and listen to it. Latif had Ryan Leslie at an early age producing a lot of his stuff, and that Javier album, The Underdogs, were all over that one. A couple more debut acts here, Ed. I'm going to give you a couple of names here. I want your immediate reaction to these two songs.
Okay.
Sorry 2004 by Ruben Studdard.
Oh, man. I got in so much trouble. I've talked about this on an earlier edition at my former job when I said Sorry 2004 is better than Beyonce's Sorry. I almost got beaten by 3 female coworkers that day.
Oh, boy.
And then maybe, Tom, you can answer this one too. The Lumity record, Uh-Oh.
Now, that record was on fire here in New York.
That was huge.
Huge here in New York.
Yep.
It drew me in. Remember, this was 2003. You couldn't just stream albums or preview them. You bought the album based on one single. So I got a hold of the album. I'm not saying if I bought it or not, but I was able to get my hands on the album. It didn't quite meet my expectations as far as what I was expecting, and
you don't say.
But that one record was huge.
Clay, let me tell you about Lumity. If that woman came out in 2020, I would have to be fielding so many tweets about how she is the greatest vocalist in the history of R&B and how she is changing the game with her mumbling and sad. So she was a pioneer. Between Lumity and Cassie, they really missed the boat. If they came out 10 years later, they would be running R&B right now.
Well, that's the thing I remember the most about, especially like Uh-Oh, the song. She wasn't even singing on key at the time.
No, she
like you said, she was ahead of her time, guys. I mean, no disrespect. I love the song she has with Tony Sunshine, My Guy, later on, a few years later. But, yeah.
Well, it kind of proves to you that you can get a hit without following the criteria or the blueprint, as long as it's a dope, catchy record, and that one is. I don't think any of us can deny that. That beat is infectious.
Kyle, I just see this comment from our boy Theo Sullivan, Brandon. She would have been Summer Walker. Oof.
She would have been.
I'm not going there. I'm not going there.
Calm down.
She would have been. I'm for real.
Oh man. All right, let's get back on track here, guys. I guess we forgot to mention Beyonce.
Now we're going to get canceled because we didn't mention Beyonce. So I'll step out and take the bullet on this one. I'll let y'all get in.
I want Kyle's opinion on this one, actually.
This, to me, is the most overrated Beyonce album.
Oh, no.
And I will explain why. It's not a bad album. I did not say the album's trash. It's not. It's not even her worst album, I don't think. But when you go back and listen to it as a complete project, what songs do you gravitate to? The singles. The songs that are not singles are such a step below. It's just kind of like skip. So other than Signs, and there might be like one, I think the Virgo song was all right. There are a couple, but like hip hop star. It's like some of Beyonce's weakest stuff are the album cuts here, and even some of the singles I was never in love with. So even though it was her big breakout by far, I don't really love it as a package. And she would go on to make much better records, starting with 2006. Don't love this one, y'all.
What were the singles, Kyle?
Crazy in Love, Baby Boy with Sean Paul, Me, Myself, and I, which I will argue is not Ashanti, Beyonce's best single to this day. Someone fight me on that. And
they're gonna fight you on that.
Was Work It Out on that album? No, I don't. That was on the Austin
It was on the
Powers
soundtrack.
Oh, okay.
Was Dangerously in Love a single? I
No.
thought that was a good song.
No.
But the Destiny's Child version is better too, of that song.
I did like the Destiny's Child version better.
Yeah.
Okay.
This album to me, it's funny. I actually came across an article not too long ago. A writer wrote about Beyonce's debut album. Solid debut, but it's no Ashanti. I kid you not. This is an actual article
No, I believe it.
This is an actual article that came out in 2003. But
in 2003, I believe it.
Yeah, I don't love this debut. It's funny because as she started to become a superstar and an icon, that album is looked at as like way better than it was. I think it was a solid debut, but I think she had better albums to come after. But I mean, we love Beyonce.
Yeah.
Exactly. I feel like it's one that retroactively we have elevated. And again, we like hype up the singles, but as an overall project,
let's just say though, for 2003 standards, it was still a pretty good effort. I mean, if it came out today, it would probably be the best thing we heard in a decade. Let's keep it real.
That's how it.
Oh, come on, Ed.
That's how it is, guys.
I'm not feeling this one, y'all. Y'all can't convince me on this one. This is the end of me.
All right. Well, did you guys think Beyonce would be as big as she is today with that debut?
I don't think anybody on the planet expected her to be as ridiculously insane cult status that she is today.
It was lined up because to me, the singles from this album were humongous.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was almost like there was, even if you didn't love the whole album, you can't deny the impact those singles had.
Yeah.
Crazy in Love, Baby Boy, Naughty Girl.
Naughty Girl.
Yeah. They were all huge.
Yeah.
I mean,
no question. I mean,
that elevated her in that moment. Even not saying the album was a classic, but
big singles.
Just look back to Destiny's Child. I mean, from jump, she was groomed to be like the superstar. I mentioned earlier, a couple episodes ago, how I was watching Smart Guy on Disney Plus, and there was like a whole episode about Destiny's Child there, and it revolved around her. She was the main character, even though LaToya was by far the best actress, but it was all about her. So yes, she was propped up, and from that debut, she was always going to be a high-level player. But I don't think anybody predicted there would be college courses and fake religions based on
it. Boy.
Like, that's a whole different other level right there.
That's true. So it's safe to say the Rookie of the Year is Beyonce?
That would have been my pick even in 2003. I mean, all right, we'll get to it. Are we going there now or?
Yeah, well, Ed says Beyonce. I'm just taking a look at the list. I mean, some people might have had better albums. Like, I really like Marcus Houston's album, but it's hard to argue against Beyonce here.
No, see, I don't consider Marcus Houston or Beyonce rookies. They both came from groups.
True.
I'm going with Dwele, guys. Dwele's Subject album, and he never gets the credit he deserves at all.
He does
Once
not.
I heard Hold On with Eric Roberson, I was a fan from day one, and look, he's gone on to do much bigger things from this album, but definitely an artist that doesn't get enough recognition.
No question. If we aren't counting Beyonce, and I understand why you would say that, I would either say Dwele or I would say Ruben. People forget. I like that Ruben album, and you forget how big he was coming off of American Idol. He seemed like next up. So you could go either way.
And he also lives in Alabama, so.
He does. Although I wasn't living there then, but yes, he does.
Ed has been so biased this whole episode. It's crazy. His wife.
This man's talking about G-Unit every 2 weeks, 2 seconds.
All right, settle down. We only have like 9 minutes left, so we gotta power through this, guys. If we get disconnected, we'll restart this live, and hopefully you guys join us. But most slept on album this year? What was an album that you feel like people need to go back and re-listen to because it's slept on? Tom?
I got 4, and I'll run through them
4.
quickly. I got 4 that we haven't even mentioned. Joe's And Then album, which I feel like never gets really talked about in his discography. More and More was a huge song for him, and there's definitely some gems on this one. TQ's Gemini album, Ed, I don't even know if you know that one.
Oh, I know TQ.
There were some gems on that one. Chico DeBarge, his Free album came out in 2003. I love that album, guys. I don't know if neither of you have heard that one. Or anyone
I have not heard that one.
Check that one out. And then finally, Glenn Lewis. I was telling you guys about him before. His Back for More album was supposed to come out. It's shelved, but it leaked. So check that one out too. Definitely some jams on there. I like that one too. So those are my 4 real quick.
Oh, Tom, in that case, then we got to also mention Kylie Dean. Her album was supposed to come out in 2003.
That's a good one.
Well.
That's
Simple
a good
Girl.
One too.
So
there's some good songs on there.
Yeah, that's a sleeper.
I love
for me.
that album.
What about you, Ed? What's your sleeper?
By far, my sleeper is Kelly Price's Priceless. We haven't even mentioned it yet.
Yeah,
I love this album. It is the album to me. Y'all know how much I love her debut. It's the album that comes the closest to matching the quality of her debut.
Oh.
So got to go with her. And I got to shout out my girl Lil Mo. We haven't mentioned her for real yet, but that album is extremely slept on, and it's not even on streaming. I wanted to listen to it the other day at work, and it's not on streaming.
You can't listen to Forever.
Shout out to the song Forever, guys. I walked into the wedding to Forever with my wife. Remember that, Kyle?
Yeah, I did. Yep. That was a great time. No, Little Mo is my underrated, most slept on one as well. The next one we have is the album that you were most anticipating before its release in 2003.
Ooh. Ugh. I think for me, I'm gonna go with Jagged Edge at the time. 112 obviously, and Jagged Edge neck and neck. And like I had told you my story on both of those earlier. So.
Ed.
Well, I hate to admit it, it was that freaking Chapter 2.
Wow.
Because I was, like I said, I was a big Ashanti fan. I loved the single. I loved Rock With You. So I was like, oh, this is going to be her best one yet. No. But I also give a shout out to Priceless, Kelly Price, because that album was delayed. There was a whole lot of weirdness going on. It was her first album since like maybe 99, 2000. So we had gone a few years, and it lived up to the hype. So those were my 2.
Tar Heels fan. You didn't even mention the song So Lost Without You from the Lil Mo album. That one is fire, too.
Yes.
Yep.
My most anticipated was Ginuwine, because I love Differences, and I felt like he had some big hits. Because that was around the same time I Need a Girl Part 2 came out, too. So I felt like it was all lining up for him to be the huge star. Didn't quite work out with the senior, but we still love Ginuwine. I guess now it's time to rank our favorite 3 albums of this year. You know how it is, guys. We both start with 3, then 2, then 1. Take a quick look at the list here, and Tom, I'll start with you. Number 3.
Number 3, I'm going with Avant's Private Room, and this is from Tom as an R&B fan at the time, and what I prefer the most. So I really like that album, guys. Ed, go revisit that one in Avant's discography. It's really, one of my favorites from him. Avant has an underrated discography, too. If we look back and, comparing to his peers, he's still relevant now and still doing it. So that's a quality album.
Ed?
Tom, I will take you up on your challenge. I'm currently working on an LL ranking, which is going to be pretty massive because LL has a bunch. But Avant will be next. You heard it here first. My number 3 is my man, Anthony Hamilton. Love this album. I think it's everything R&B should be. If you want a successful, powerful R&B album today that's a classic for real, if you want to know the tools to make a classic, you study that album because it has the tools to make songs that really are meaningful and that stick with the listener. Got to go with my man.
Number 3 for me will have to be the Willy Wonka album, The Chocolate Factory. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but that was a good album, and I will give credit when it's due. So, Kels, your number 3. Tom, number 2.
My number 2, I'm going to piggyback off Ed and go with Anthony Hamilton, coming from where I'm from. I just, first of all, love the story of how he even got to that point. Like you mentioned, Kyle, his debut was probably 5-6 years earlier in the 90s, and he got dropped a few times and came back. Charlene, I didn't even have a Charlene in my life, but I was feeling that pain regardless. You know, the song Coming From Where I'm From, I loved, and the whole album is definitely, I don't know if it's a classic, but it's one of my favorites, you know, from that era. So got to go with Anthony Hamilton's Coming From Where I'm From.
Ed?
Number 2, I gotta be like you. Gotta be like you, Kyle. I gotta go to Willy Wonka, the man who shall not be. Well, who cares? We named them all podcasts.
Oh,
R. Kelly, Chocolate Factory. I know a lot of people mentioned TP2. TP2 is my favorite R. Kelly album. I feel like Chocolate Factory is his best work. Again, we're just talking about the quality of the album, not whether he did who, what, or whatever. We're talking quality. We're talking historical impact. That's my number 2.
My number 2, this might actually surprise you guys. I'm going with Khalees, Tasty.
Really?
Like Tom said, very great body of work. The Neptunes records are great. And then even the stuff aside from that. So Khalees is my number 2.
all right. Real quick, I'm going to go with my number 1, guys. Loon. He came out with his debut album that year.
We're going to get cut off Instagram because we're hitting an hour.
I'm going to cut him off.
And you're going to say Loon.
No. Real quick, my runners up are Javier, Jagged Edge, Ashanti, Marcus Houston, and Monica. Those were outside my top 3. My number 1, Musiq Soulchild. I still come back to this album. You know, I'm a Musiq Soulchild fan, you guys know, but I love this album. It's second best for me.
I think it's going to cut off soon.
Keep going.
Are we going? All right. So
Ed.
are we?
We'll go until we get the boot. So my number 1 should not be a surprise. Shaquille knows. He may be all right. Number 1, Alicia Keys, Diary, best album of the decade.
Wow. My number 1 will be Monica, After the Storm.
Good one.
Oh, okay.
I love that album. When I look back, I want to say it's her best, but then you have her debut, which was pretty freaking amazing too.
Pretty close.
I'm going to go with Monica there. And Monica it is. So, guys, we're about to get cut off. So, I don't know what happens from here on out, but Ed, you have like 20 seconds. What's going on with soulandstereo.com?
Roll to soulandstereo.com right now. See our review of Trey Songz's new album, Back Home. If you like Ready, if you like Passion, Pain, and Pleasure, if you like that classic sound of Trey, this is the album for you. So go check that out.
And I'll just say real quick, thank you everyone who's been tuning in every week, everyone who's with us live here. We really appreciate you. We enjoy talking with you guys. You know, we see you guys every week. We appreciate it. Everyone who's listening to the audio later on, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, we enjoy doing this. We're going to keep it going, guys. Soulandstereo.com. You know, I got soul.com.
And free Baby Blue. I saw that hashtag going around. So, Ed?
Delete that hashtag.
All right. We'll be back next week to talk about 2002. That will be very exciting, as you guys.
One of my favorites.
Mine too.
Oh,
wait
God.
a second. Tar Heels fan. Clinton Lewis is not a knockoff of Maxwell.
What?
Oh wow.
What?
All right, we're gonna end this off. Tom, you can fight him later on. We're out of here,
Tar
guys.
Heels fan, we're coming for you, boy.
Player. It's cool. We out.
All right, you guys take care. Be safe,
Peace.
and we'll talk 2002 next week. Peace.